Elena's trembling hands held the wedding photo as tears splattered onto the glass. 8 years of marriage reduced to a pile of memories she was packing away forever. The divorce papers sat signed on the kitchen table, waiting for David to collect them in the morning. Their love story was over, but as she wiped her eyes and looked closer at the photograph, her breath caught in her throat. There, standing behind the altar where she and David had exchanged vows, was a figure that definitely wasn't there on their wedding day. A woman in flowing blue robes, her hands clasped in prayer, watching over their sacred moment with eyes full of infinite compassion. If you've ever felt your family falling apart, this story will give you hope. Like this video and subscribe to our channel if you believe in Mary's power to heal families. To create a spiritual chain of prayer for all broken families, write HEAL in the comments below. Let's unite our faith and ask Mary to intercede for every family watching this. Elena's heart pounded as she stared at the impossible image. She had studied this photograph countless times over the years, but somehow the Virgin Mary had been there all along, invisible to their eyes until this moment of deepest despair. The figure seemed to glow with a gentle radiance, and Elena could swear she saw the faintest smile on Mary's serene face. "This can't be real," Elena whispered to the empty house that once echoed with laughter and dreams of children who never came. She grabbed her magnifying glass, examining every detail. The figure was crystal clear, not a trick of light or shadow. Mary's presence was undeniable, captured forever in their most sacred moment. What did this mean? Why was Elena seeing her now, after years of unanswered prayers for their marriage? Little did she know that Mary had been working behind the scenes all along, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal herself and begin the most extraordinary healing their broken hearts had ever witnessed. David would arrive tomorrow to finalize their separation, convinced their love was dead and buried. He had no idea that the Mother of God herself had attended their wedding and was about to intervene in ways that would shake them both to their very core. Elena clutched the photograph against her chest, feeling a warmth spreading through her body that she hadn't experienced in years. The same Mary who had stood by the cross watching her own son suffer understood the agony of watching love die. But Elena was about to discover that when human love fails, divine love steps in with power beyond imagination. This wasn't just a photograph. It was proof that Mary never abandons her children, especially when their families hang in the balance. As Elena stared into Mary's gentle eyes in the photo, she had no idea that tomorrow would bring a miracle that would transform their marriage forever. But first, she needed to understand how two people so deeply in love could have drifted so far apart that divorce seemed like their only option. 8 years earlier, Elena and David had stood before that same altar like two souls, perfectly created for each other. Their wedding day at St. Margaret's Cathedral had been a fairy tale. Elena's flowing white dress, David's tears of joy as she walked down the aisle, and their families beaming with pride. The photographer had captured every precious moment, including what they would later discover was Mary herself, silently blessing their union. "I promise to love you through every storm life brings," David had whispered as they exchanged vows, his voice breaking with emotion. Elena had believed those words with every fiber of her being. They both did. The first 2 years had been blissful. They dreamed of filling their cozy home with the laughter of children, painting nurseries, and choosing baby names during long evening walks. But when Elena's first pregnancy ended in miscarriage at 10 weeks, something inside their marriage shifted. The second loss came 6 months later, then a third, each one carving deeper wounds in their hearts. "Maybe God doesn't want us to be parents." Elena had sobbed into David's chest after the fourth miscarriage. But instead of drawing them closer in their shared grief, the losses built invisible walls between them. David threw himself into work, staying late at the office to avoid the painful silence at home. Elena spent hours in empty nurseries, holding tiny baby clothes they'd bought too soon. What they didn't realize was how grief was poisoning their ability to comfort each other. Where they once talked for hours, they now exchanged polite pleasantries. Where passion once burned, cold indifference settled like winter frost. The couple, who had promised to weather every storm together, were drowning in separate oceans of pain. Marriage counseling felt like their last hope. For 6 months, they sat in Dr. Patterson's office, excavating years of buried resentment and unspoken hurt. Elena accused David of abandoning her when she needed him most. David felt suffocated by Elena's constant sadness, guilty for wanting to move forward when she seemed stuck in perpetual mourning. "I don't even know who you are anymore," David had said during their final session, his words cutting through Elena like shattered glass. The man who once promised to love her forever was looking at her like a stranger. The separation came gradually, then all at once. David moved into an apartment across town, taking only his clothes and leaving behind 8 years of shared memories. For 3 months, they tried to pretend this was temporary, that space would heal what closeness had damaged. But the silence grew longer, the visits less frequent, until even their wedding anniversary passed unacknowledged. Tonight, as Elena packed away their wedding photos, each image felt like evidence of a beautiful lie they'd told themselves. How had 2 people who once couldn't imagine living apart become strangers, eager to escape each other's presence? The woman in those photos looked so hopeful, so certain that love would conquer everything. She had no idea that Mary had been watching over them since that very first day, waiting patiently for the moment when all human hope would be exhausted and divine intervention could finally begin. Elena collapsed onto their bedroom floor, still clutching the wedding photograph against her chest. The reality of Mary's presence felt both impossible and undeniably real. Through 8 years of marriage, countless prayers, and endless tears, the Mother of God had been there all along, witnessing every moment of their love and loss. "Holy Mary, Mother of God," Elena whispered through sobs that came from the deepest places of her soul. "I don't understand why you're showing yourself to me now, when everything is already over. David and I are finished, our love is dead." But as the words left her lips, something stirred within her heart, a tiny flicker of hope she thought had been extinguished forever. She traced Mary's gentle face in the photograph with trembling fingers, remembering childhood prayers her grandmother had taught her. "Sweet Mother, you who carried the Christ child and watched him suffer on the cross, you know what it means to have your heart pierced with sorrow. You understand the pain of watching love die before your eyes." Elena's voice grew stronger, more desperate. "I have nothing left to offer except this broken marriage and these shattered dreams. If there's any way, if David and I are meant to be together, please, Holy Mother, show me what to do." The room fell silent, except for the gentle tick of their wedding clock on the nightstand. Elena closed her eyes, pressing the photograph against her heart, when suddenly she felt it, a warmth unlike anything she'd experienced before. The photo seemed to pulse with gentle energy, spreading through her chest like liquid light. Little did she know that at that exact moment across town in his lonely apartment, David was experiencing something equally mysterious. Elena's eyes flew open as the warmth intensified. The photograph felt alive in her hands, and she could swear she heard the faintest whisper, like a mother's lullaby carried on invisible wind. "My child, love never truly dies. It only waits to be reborn." Was she imagining this? Elena looked around the empty bedroom, half expecting to see Mary standing there in person. But the warmth remained, coursing through her body like a gentle current of electricity. For the first time in months, the crushing weight of despair began to lift from her shoulders. She studied the photograph again and gasped. Mary's expression seemed different somehow, more animated, more present. The Virgin's eyes appeared to be looking directly at Elena now, filled with infinite compassion and what looked like anticipation. "What are you trying to tell me?" Elena whispered, but the only answer was another wave of that mysterious warmth. Across the city, David was staring at his phone, his finger hovering over Elena's contact information. He'd picked up the phone to call her 17 times in the past week, but always talked himself out of it. Tonight felt different. Tonight, an inexplicable urge to hear his wife's voice was growing stronger by the minute. Neither of them realized that Mary's intervention had already begun, working in ways more subtle and profound than either could imagine. That same night, David finally pressed call. Elena's phone rang just as she was placing the wedding photograph on her nightstand, and her heart nearly stopped when she saw his name on the screen. Elena? David's voice was hesitant, vulnerable in a way she hadn't heard in months. I don't know why, but I had this overwhelming feeling that I needed to talk to you tonight. David, Elena breathed, tears springing to her eyes. The timing felt like more than coincidence. I was looking through our wedding photos. An awkward silence stretched between them before David cleared his throat. Listen, I know we're supposed to finalize everything tomorrow, but maybe we could grab coffee first. There are some things I want to say. Eleanor's pulse quickened. Was this Mary's doing? Yes, she whispered. I'd like that. Over the next few days, the coincidences multiplied in ways that defied explanation. David's favorite song, their first dance song from the wedding, played in 3 different stores he visited. Elena found their old love letters scattered on the kitchen floor after a mysterious breeze, despite all the windows being closed. Their wedding florist called both of them by mistake, asking about anniversary arrangements for a couple with their exact names. Mary's intervention was just beginning. If you want to see more amazing family miracles, subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. But when Elena tried to share her discovery about Mary and the wedding photograph, David's walls went up immediately. You're seeing things that aren't there, Elena, he said sharply during their coffee meeting. This is exactly the kind of magical thinking that's kept us stuck in the past. We lost our babies and we lost ourselves. Some mysterious figure in a photo isn't going to fix what's broken. His dismissal felt like a physical blow. Elena pulled out the photograph with trembling hands. David, please, just look, really look. She's right there behind the altar. David glanced at the photo with barely concealed irritation. I see shadows and wishful thinking. Elena, this is why we can't make this work. You're living in a fantasy world where divine intervention solves real problems. The conversation ended with David walking away, leaving Elena alone at the cafe table with tears streaming down her face. That night, he called his lawyer to accelerate the divorce proceedings. Mary's gentle intervention seemed powerless against his hardened heart. But Mary wasn't finished. She began working through their mutual friends with surgical precision. Their college roommate called Elena, mentioning how much David had cried when talking about their marriage ending. David's sister reached out to him, sharing how Elena had helped her through her own miscarriage years ago. Their parish priest unexpectedly contacted both of them about their upcoming anniversary mass. Each connection felt divinely orchestrated, yet David grew more resistant with every coincidence. The night before their final divorce meeting, he left Elena a voicemail that shattered her renewed hope. Stop trying to save something that's already dead. I'm done with the games, the signs, and the false hope. Tomorrow we end this once and for all. Elena hung up the phone, staring at Mary's gentle face in the photograph. Had she misunderstood? Was David too far gone for even the Mother of God to reach? The next morning, David arrived at Elena's house to collect the divorce papers. His jaw set with grim determination. He'd spent the entire night convincing himself that ending their marriage was the only rational choice. But when Elena opened the door, her eyes swollen from crying, something in his chest tightened. The papers are on the kitchen table, she said quietly, stepping aside to let him enter. David walked through their home like a stranger, noting how empty it felt without his presence. On the kitchen counter sat their wedding photograph, and despite himself, his eyes were drawn to it. Elena had left it there deliberately, one final attempt at showing him what she'd discovered. David, Elena's voice was barely a whisper. Before you sign those papers, would you please just look at our wedding photo one more time? Not for me, for us, for what we used to be. Something in her tone made him pause. Against his better judgment, David picked up the photograph, preparing to glance at it dismissively. But as his eyes focused on the image, his breath caught in his throat. There, standing behind the altar with unmistakable clarity, was a figure in flowing blue robes. A woman with gentle eyes and hands clasped in prayer, watching over their wedding ceremony with infinite love. The Virgin Mary was there, as real and present as the flowers and the guests and their own radiant faces. This isn't possible, David stammered, his hands shaking as he brought the photo closer to his eyes. She wasn't there. I would have seen her. We all would have seen her. Elena moved closer, her heart pounding. But she was there, David. She's been there all along, watching over us, waiting for us to need her guidance. David sank into a kitchen chair, still staring at the photograph. How is this real? How can I be seeing something that wasn't visible 8 years ago? As if in answer to his question, the room suddenly filled with the most beautiful warmth, like being embraced by pure love itself. Both Elena and David felt it simultaneously, a presence so gentle and powerful that it took their breath away. And then, in the silence of their kitchen, they both heard her voice, not with their ears, but with their hearts. Mary's words flowed through them like liquid light. My dear children, the babies you've grieved are not lost. They wait for you in heaven, praying for their parents' hearts to heal. Your love was blessed by God from the beginning. Do not let grief destroy what I have joined together. David's eyes filled with tears as understanding flooded through him. Our babies, he whispered. They're with her. They've been interceding for us, Elena breathed, reaching for David's trembling hand. All this time, our children have been asking Mary to save their parents' marriage. For the first time in years, David didn't pull away from Elena's touch. David's fingers intertwined with Elena's as they both stared at Mary's gentle face in the photograph. The divorce papers lay forgotten on the table, suddenly meaningless in the presence of such overwhelming love. Forgive me, David whispered, his voice breaking with emotion. I was so angry at God for taking our babies that I couldn't see he was actually protecting them. They're safe with Mary, aren't they? Elena nodded through her tears. They're watching over us, wanting us to be together. All those coincidences, all those moments when you almost called but didn't. Mary was working through our children, wasn't she? As understanding dawned, they began to see Mary's intricate plan unfolding before their eyes. The wedding florist who called them both by mistake. Their anniversary was next month, and she'd been Mary's instrument to plant seeds of memory. David's sudden urge to call Elena the night she discovered the photograph wasn't random at all. It was their unborn children whispering to their father's heart. Even Dr. Patterson, David said with wonder, remembering something their marriage counselor had said. He told us that sometimes couples have to completely break apart before they can heal properly. That wasn't his wisdom. That was Mary speaking through him. Elena felt the warmth from the photograph spreading through their clasped hands. She's been orchestrating everything since our wedding day. The miscarriages happened for a reason we couldn't understand then, but our babies are interceding for us now from heaven. David pulled Elena into his arms for the first time in 8 months. I'm so sorry I couldn't comfort you when we lost them. I was drowning in my own grief and didn't know how to save us both. We don't have to save ourselves, Elena sobbed against his chest. Mary has been saving us all along. Their reconciliation sent shockwaves of joy through their families. David's sister called it a miracle when he showed up at Elena's house that evening with his suitcase, moving back home where he belonged. Elena's mother, who had been praying rosaries for their marriage every night, wept with gratitude when she heard Mary had appeared in their wedding photograph. Their parish priest, Father Miguel, could hardly contain his amazement when they brought him the photograph. In 30 years of ministry, I have never seen such clear evidence of Mary's maternal protection over a marriage, he said, with tears in his eyes. This will strengthen the faith of our entire community. Word spread quickly through St. Margaret's Parish. Other struggling couples began asking to see the miraculous photograph, finding hope for their own relationships. The image became a source of inspiration for families throughout their community, proof that Mary never abandons those who call upon her help. But the most beautiful transformation was yet to come. Their marriage had been broken down to its very foundation, but now Mary was rebuilding it into something stronger and more beautiful than they had ever imagined possible. 1 year later, David and Elena renewed their wedding vows at the same altar where Mary had silently blessed their original union. This time, they were aware of her presence, and their love had been transformed by suffering into something deeper and more resilient than they had ever thought possible. The miraculous photograph now hangs in their bedroom, a daily reminder that Mary never stops working on behalf of struggling families. Every morning, Elena touches the glass gently and whispers a prayer of gratitude for the mother who refused to let their marriage die. Their relationship bears little resemblance to what it was before, where once they avoided difficult conversations, they now communicate with radical honesty about their fears, hopes, and dreams. The grief that once drove them apart has become a source of compassion that draws them closer together. They speak openly about their babies in heaven, knowing these precious souls are still very much part of their family. "We thought Mary had abandoned us during the miscarriages," David often tells other struggling couples. "But she was actually gathering our children to herself, training them to become intercessors for their parents' marriage. Every loss was part of a bigger plan we couldn't see. Lee, the miracle has taught them that Mary specializes in what seems impossible, healing relationships that appear completely destroyed. She doesn't just fix surface problems, she rebuilds foundations with supernatural strength." Elena and David's marriage is now based on divine love rather than human emotion alone, making it unshakable even in future storms. Their testimony has become a beacon of hope throughout their community and beyond. The photograph has been shared thousands of times on social media, bringing comfort to families worldwide who are struggling with similar pain. Dozens of couples have written to thank them for sharing their story, reporting their own miraculous reconciliations after praying to Mary for family healing. You see, Mary understands the unique agony of watching relationships die because she watched her own son die on the cross. But she also understands resurrection, the miraculous power to bring dead things back to life. When we place our broken families in her maternal hands, she doesn't just repair them, she transforms them into something more beautiful than they ever were before. If your marriage feels beyond repair, if your children have stopped speaking to you, if your family seems permanently fractured, remember David and Elena's story. Mary has been present in your family from the very beginning, even when you couldn't see her. She's waiting for you to call upon her intercession, ready to begin working miracles that will leave you breathless with gratitude. The same mother who appeared in a wedding photograph to save one marriage is available to heal every broken family that turns to her in faith. Your situation may seem hopeless, but Mary specializes in the impossible. Trust her maternal love and watch as she begins weaving miracles into the fabric of your family story. Have you experienced Mary's healing in your family? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more miraculous family healing stories.